Hello, welcome to my weekly dev stream. To all the game makers out there, it's the sponsored GameMaker stream. It's the stream where I make something in GameMaker, and GameMaker sponsor me to do it every week, which has been great to keep me going with some accountability for getting this game done. So at the moment we're on week 4 of let's get this game to alpha. I've got 4 more weeks until December, and then I might give myself a tiny little bit of leeway. But the idea is just have that deadline. I've sort of decided on a feature set of what we want the game to be by December. I'm getting some help in the next couple of weeks. So Gleb, don't know if you're in the chat yet, but I've got another GameMaker dev who's going to come in and do some freelancing on this project and help fix certain problems. There's a bit of optimization work that I've done that the game is still kind of grinding to a halt after a certain level, because we're doing stuff with objects that we should have done with tile maps. As always, I have to give the disclaimer, I am predominantly a game designer, not a programmer, not a computer scientist, so you're going to see all sorts of bad practice on these streams. That's always the case. So whether you come to just hang out and co-work as you work on your own games, I know lots of people do that, or to kind of nose at what I'm doing, please don't take what I'm doing as instructional. I will be doing all sorts of things the wrong way, and often people pop in and go, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? And it's literally that I don't know the method. You know, someone was asking me why I didn't do something using switches instead of the method I was using last week, and I just like, well, I could spend a day learning how to do that, and I probably should at some point, or I could just get it done. And there's a lot of that. So if you feel the urge to teach me how to do something, bear in mind that I'm working to a deadline. I'm not actually a programmer. I don't really think of myself as a programmer. And also GameMaker language doesn't always work the way you would think it does as well, which is another thing that happens quite a lot. So we got lots of why does your conditional only have 1 equals in it? And it's because GameMaker is naughty and lets you do things like that. So what did we do last week? I did an extra stream last week where we added the circus. And the thinking behind the circus was I wanted to add balloon objects, so we had a way to get people back up to the top of the level, like a last chance kind of gamble. We do have climby ropes. I haven't put them into a usable item like the climby ropes in Spelunky yet, but I was thinking of floaty balloons would be fun, so we've got that. And yeah, I got a bit more kind of placeholder music. There's 3 tracks of placeholder music in the game currently. They're not necessarily what I will use in the final game, but shout out to Jill. I just nicked one of your random songs that you posted on the Discord, and I've got 2 tracks here by Vortican King at the moment, which I think are kind of giving a good sense of like the direction for the music of the game. One of the things I've noticed is if we play it without music, that we don't have any kind of like whistly ambient sound for when there's no music or the music's quite low. And I think I might do that today because that's like an easy thing. I'm going to start making myself a list on paper, because sometimes I come into these streams with a very clear idea of what I want to add that week, and I do try and do the kind of fun stuff in a stream, but I don't really have anything today, so I'm going to be just doing some playtesting to start off with, so anyone who's new can see the game. So I'm going to put ambient wind slash Atmos loop, and then seeing what's on the back of here. It's just a list of rooms I could implement. The thing is, I don't think that I need more rooms for this build. I think one of the things I do need is some of the rooms need a bit more character. But the overarching thing that we haven't really resolved yet, I don't have a save system yet, which I will be looking at in the next couple of weeks. but we also don't have... we have a very light progression system where you can earn a currency to upgrade how many keys you start with and how much your maximum health is. But we don't have a way to unlock the blue rooms yet, which is kind of going to be the long-term progression of the game. And I want to get that in some format for the alpha in December. I don't really care if it's actually the final form of that feature, but I need something there because otherwise playtesters won't have anything to work towards. So yeah, this is the circus that we added last week. It gives you these balloons, and that means if you build it at the bottom of the level and you're stuck, you can use the balloons to get back up, because they basically lower your character's gravity so you can zoom back up to the top of the level, which is like one way of getting back if you've built the level in a broken way that doesn't get you back. And then we've got these presents that you can buy that are currently all just 25, and they have a different thing in each time. Sometimes they have loads of coins in. I also added that coin pooling feature where if lots of coins land together, then they become a pile. Which is kind of a quality of life type thing, I guess. So yeah, I can use these balloons to jank my way up and around the level, but they do pop if they touch anything. And if you drop from them too high, you take full damage as well. One of my sort of... The jars are automatically smashing because I've got that relic, which basically lets you smash stuff by running into it. I don't have all the nice... The other thing I added last week was I started to add books, which are the way that the game will deliver its lore, which will be very light, but there'll be something. So if you've played Rogue Legacy or something like that, where there are just like little notes that you gather that give you little bits of story intertwined with tips on how to play the game, I've worked out that as a kind of I would say as a format that exists now. I don't really know what the content is, but I've worked out the format. And then I guess one day I need to just sit down and put my kind of Alan Moore cosplay on and write loads of stuff. But I wrote a bit of placeholder for that, but we'll see it if I get the library. Because it's currently the library or the study gives you books, and the study is like a smaller version of the library. There we go, there's the library. But I can't actually get up. So there's two maps that give you golden rooms in your deck, and then there's a green book and a red book up the top, and those do lore stuff. Lore stuff combined with tips. So we're going to make quite a lot of the systems in this game quite opaque, because that's what old school roguelikes are about. They're just about learning the system and how all the things relate to each other and stuff like that. But then we will use the books to drip feed information on how those things work. You can see it's starting to slow down now. So when the level, we're quite a big level there. I've turned off my custom lighting because that was slowing things down a bit more. But yeah, that's where our kind of outsourcing will come in, because the other thing I need to do with these red rooms is make the appearance of enemies kind of scale with how many rooms you've built. So red rooms should be more dangerous the bigger the level is, basically. So it sort of has some auto-balancing. The bigger you build the level, the more it becomes like this big sprawling Metroidvania level, the more kind of danger and traps will be in the rooms that you spawn. And that kind of means that the the rooms that are further away from the start will have more peril. Right, now I've basically built a situation where I don't think I can get back to the portal here. Maybe I can jump from here over. I can't quite make that jump. But this is also a good use case for the balloons, because I can grab one of those and jump up and float over that way. So I need to drop there so I don't take too much fall damage, and then yeah, there we go. Okay, that's cool. It's good to do this kind of just open-ended playtesting, because you start to see the use cases for the things and they prove themselves. So the balloons have kind of proven themselves, although I think I'm screwed now. I've jumped down here. I made it so you can kind of punch through the red stuff, but it often kind of reappears behind you. So the idea is that instead of it completely blocking your way, because it did used to just kind of completely block your way, now you kind of can brute force your way out of it, but you're likely to get killed by other stuff while you're doing that, which feels like a nice compromise. At the moment, I have this kind of thing where you can get a little bit stuck in a wall, but you can also punch your way out of it. So after playing Noita, I feel more comfortable with that decision, because Noita really kind of lets you get stuck in the ground. We've got slightly less floaty jump as well. People were bringing that up in the last stream, and it had been raised enough times, both by people who just watched and by people who played. So we've got a bit more kind of sticky. I don't have variable, like you hold the jump longer to jump higher. Maybe we'll bring that in later, but it's not that important at this stage. Would definitely be more important if this game was a bit more action intensive and combat focused, but it's not really at the moment. It's kind of more like a puzzle platformer where the puzzle emerges as you build the stuff. So can you burn the wood spikes? No, but you should be able to. One of the other things I was thinking of is having sort of chandeliers, like hanging gas lamps that you can knock down that make a fire as well. I thought that would be quite cool. So I have a thing where things can be on fire. Like this would be a good situation to make that. Yeah, you can light things with other things. So if I hit that TNT with my fireball, then but we don't have like a fire, so you can't have like a block of fire. And I think I should look into that at some point, because it would be good to have like, you smash this this oil lamp on the ceiling and it falls down and makes a block of fire. I think that would be a good thing. One of the sort of principles I've been following when I've been developing this, and I'm sort of past the stage where I need it now, but earlier on I tried not to implement things that I knew would be fun. And I know that sounds strange, but if you think of like, there's certain features in this that are very bog standard for this type of game, like bombs, for example, and the TNT blocks. And the thing is, I've always known that I will probably put bombs and TNT blocks in this game. And because I've always known it, I've avoided, in the first few months of kind of prototyping, doing that, because it's like an experiment you don't need to do, because you already know the answer to it. You know that adding bombs is going to make the thing more fun. And I think there are quite a lot of features like that, like, fires and falling things that break and stuff, and leave fires, that it can kind of go in the backlog, because I just know it's always going to be a benefit to put that in the game. Whereas the things I need to test are more like the unknowns and the things that I just don't know how they work at all yet. But yeah, I like the idea of being able to burn the spikes. I think that's cool. I'm going to maybe add that to the list for today, because that seems like an easy thing to implement. Although, you could also just walk through the spikes, because they only hurt you when you fall on them. So there's not a good reason to... You can kind of walk past them, you just can't jump on top of them from a height. I think they maybe need to be more sensitive. That's why. It's because we're counting the number of frames that the player has been in the air before we hurt them on the spikes, so the spikes are undersensitive at the moment. So if I go here and jump... Nope. I should have the frames in air on a debug somewhere, but... Not like me to do something in a way that is efficient or saves time. Those arrows aren't very reliable damage as well. That's better. I think the invulnerability window that the player gets is a little bit too wide as well. Yeah, I think I was giving 2 seconds of invulnerability after each time the player gets hurt by anything, and I think that was just too wide. I think it might be a tuning day, actually. There's all of these little things, these little kind of tiny tuning things that I've been aware of for a while. I think it might be time. Maybe I will make the fire block today as well, because I think the idea of burning the spikes is cool, but a way that we could do it in a kind of more roguelike-y proceduralist way is, instead of having like the spikes are there and they are on fire, instead make a block that is fire, and when spikes interact with a fire source they just turn into a fire and they become another source of damage, and then after a while they burn out and go away. And that way we've got the fire block to use for other things, like dropping a lamp or whatever. But instead of having to have like a... Yeah, instead of having to have like an on-fire state for those traps, we just turn them from one hazard into... we turn them from a permanent hazard into a temporary hazard. And then we've got that other temporary hazard type to do other things with later on. So we're going to make fire blocks today. We'll make them interact with everything that should be burnt. Blew myself up. Okay, so fire blocks, using fire blocks to burn spikes, red rooms, and danger level. I think I have a very, don't know how I would scale my danger level with my red rooms. We've got these guys. So when I spawn a red room, all of this currently always exists. We've also got a... not that. these eggs are a child of what's it called? Here we go. No, not relic required to spawn. Chance to spawn. A lot of these objects have a kind of percentage chance to spawn in whatever room they're in. But I can also, when the code is run to decide whether something spawns, I can also look at what type of object it is and how deep into the run the player is. And I can say, okay, if the player has built this many rooms, then add this percentage chance to spawn on. Yeah, so the egg bats at the moment, the egg bats are just always there. So I'm going to change that. And we go back to our rooms. Give these guys a chance to spawn. Yeah, Lucas. I mean, I think thinking ahead to like all of the controller stuff is there as placeholder for playtesting. It will need automating at one stage, but I think someone who's operating at my level of game dev, which is not very high, I think the idea of thinking ahead to Switch implementations and stuff at this point would be wasteful, because I don't even know if the game is worth taking that seriously yet. So there's a lot of those workflow things where, you know, you watch certain kind of content creators and they will say, oh, you must do all of this localization work, you must do all of this controller remapping and stuff early on so it's easy to do later on. But that really starts from the assumption that your game is worth taking all the way. And I don't really work under that assumption in anything I'm making. So I would rather just make the game and then solve those problems later on. Even if it ends up kind of being a pain in the ass, I still would rather waste the time later on a game. Well, it's not wasting time then because the game is proven. But like spend the time later on a game that is actually proven rather than treat every project as if I'm assuming that it is worth the time. Because many games are not, and I think the amount of time, if you took all the time that people have spent sort of localizing and doing controller remapping menus and stuff on games that just were never going to be worth doing that for, it would be thousands of years of human life wasted. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. It's like there's stuff that I know would be good practice if I was running a commercial game studio, but I'm not. I'm just making my own stuff. Okay, we're going to go var chance equals chance to spawn plus dot rooms. Have I ever felt a fear of failure in game dev? Not really, because I do it because I enjoy doing it, and then if anything I make is good enough to sell, which I don't think it ever has been, right? This is the first game that I'm sort of taking seriously and trying to do properly, but I've made dozens of little toys and projects that I've just put online as jam entries and stuff, and I think you have to think about what you mean by failure. It's like if you set out to make a commercially viable game and that is your primary goal, then of course you're going to feel a fear of failure, because chances are you're going to fail, and you've pinned too much on it. I don't know. I think most of the games that I really like have been made by people who are making a game just because they liked making a game. And that's kind of where the quality comes from, and that's where the value comes from for players. And yeah, just don't think too hard about that kind of stuff, I think. So we've got this chance to spawn variable that is all of our egg bats have. And then we're going to add to it based on how many rooms the player has built. So if they built 10 rooms, we'll add 30%, so 3 times... Yeah, I think that's right. So we'll take the amount of rooms that you've built so far, times that by 3, and that will be like the bonus percentage chance to spawn. So if they have 25% chance to spawn and you've built 10 rooms, they now have 55% chance to spawn. So we're kind of ramping up the amount of enemies that get spawned depending on how long you've survived and how many rooms you've built and stuff like that. That makes sense to me. And then if chance is less than... So yeah, my workflow with this is we get to December, I put out an alpha build, I use the channel to ask people to playtest it, and then I basically leave it dormant for a month or 2, and then I go and work on something else, because I get bored very quickly. I have lots of game ideas. I want to work on them all. I can't work on them at the same time because your skills degrade and you forget how a project works and stuff. So I've deliberately created a checkpoint where I can put this into playtesting, not pay much attention to it for a little while, and start thinking about the next thing, and then I can come back to this in like mid-January and get back working on it based on the playtesting. But I think, yeah, the next game I work on is going to be a completely mouse-controlled game that is sort of all menus and not a action game set in a world, because I'm not cut out for it. That's one of the things I'm learning here. Right, we do self and we do false. This false just means that when this instance is destroyed, it won't run its destroy event, which is what would normally turn this into like a dead version of itself. We don't want to do that because we're just kind of deleting it. So we do a random number. That is actually 100 because 0 is counted. If that is less than chance, then we destroy the thing. Chance starts at 25 for the ones I placed in the room, plus the amount based on how many rooms we've built. That means we now have a little bit of difficulty scaling based on the enemies. Not that they are particularly dangerous or very good at killing you, because they're not. Yeah, so one of the reasons I set my channel up with the format that it has, I'm gonna put the I'm gonna make it so we don't start with the BGM, because when I'm doing lots of short play testings, it kind of becomes a little bit grating to keep hearing it. Okay, I'm gonna put that on 0. Yeah, one of the reasons I set the channel up the way that I did when I started this back in, it was like June last year or something, I didn't want to be making game dev content and doing videos and streams aimed at people who aren't actually doing it. And I think a lot of stuff goes down that route. And that is why I set it up as a clinic. Because then, you know, what I do on Thursdays and what I aim most of my videos around is people that are already actually making games. And that is a really good like initial barrier to entry, because then you're not really dealing with anyone who's just only interested in it because they want to make money. You know, that's a motivation for some people. But I think a lot of the stuff you see out there, they're like, oh, look, this game dev made all this money and sold all these copies, isn't actually aimed at people who are doing it. It's aimed at selling the dream to people who aren't actually doing it yet, you know? I started writing a book. It's my second attempt in the last year, because the first book I started on was like, I don't know, I think it was a bit too lofty in its aims. So instead I kind of refactored it to like, what is the title of the book that I think that most people who watch my channel would buy? And I thought of an intro to game design for solo developers. So it's like loads of game design concepts, but specifically aimed at people who are building their own games, because a lot of game design books aren't like that. They're sort of written as if game design is separate from implementation, and they're written from the perspective of like people who want to work in the industry as a game designer. Most game design textbooks from the last 20 years have taken that kind of stance. So I thought of that, and one of the models that came up, one of the models that came up when I was writing away was yearning, learning, and earning, because like lots of people never get past the yearning stage. They're just like very, very interested in like the dream of the thing. And then people get into the kind of learning stage and they want to get into the earning stage, and people get very frustrated when you give them advice that isn't for them yet. So, you know, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot in the last couple of weeks, and part of this is because we're doing Kim Nordstrom's book about the games industry for the podcast this month. But one of the things that's coming up was like, do what you're good at. If you want to sell a game and you want to make a game of high quality, do what you're good at. Don't do what you're not good at. You know, don't be over ambitious and try and do something you don't think you can do. And then people get all upset and they're like, but, you know, we should push ourselves to learn new things. And it's like, yeah, and you should do that proportionally more when you're at the start. And that's not really the time to be selling what you're making. That's the time to be just learning, right? And then when you get to the point when you go from learning to earning, then you focus on what you have a proven talent at. People get really upset by that advice. It's really strange. But I realized it's that people want all advice to be for them, and they don't have like the self-awareness or the situational awareness to understand that there are a bunch of different places you could be in your career. And yeah, like I've been doing games as a hobby for like 30 years. Like I literally started making games in BASIC when I was about 8 or 9. And then I kind of drifted away from the technical side of things, because in the early 2000s, it was like we had loads of good level editors and we didn't have good game engines. So, you know, I learned that way. But, you know, I've spent a lot of time learning what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And I've only really just gotten to the point where I kind of feel like, okay, if I focus all my energies on doing the stuff that I know I can do and avoiding the stuff I can't, like 3D or... Oh, interesting. Then I might be able to make something that's good, but there's like a kind of belief barrier as well. It's like an attitudinal barrier where people kind of just want to make whatever they want, put it out there, and then fingers crossed hope someone will like it, rather than accepting that game development is entertainment and you're making something for someone else and it needs to be good for them. And if you've overcome that and you're in the stage where you're actually thinking about the player's experience, you're already in like the top 90% of people that are putting games out. DWN, don't take this the wrong way, but your perspective is very British. It's tall poppy syndrome. This is not a criticism, as the YouTube game dev scene is in dire need of it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just started putting videos out on the basis of, you know, my previous knowledge and what I thought would be useful and interesting to people. I didn't do it with like a big background of, I didn't do competitor analysis. I didn't come on YouTube and look at what everyone else was doing and go, I must do something in this niche. I just ignored the niche and did things the way I was interested in doing. And some of that comes from my time of teaching at university, because I got very, very tired of like teaching to a group of people who were supposedly interested in the thing but had never actually tried to do it. And you get quite a lot of that with university applications, because they don't necessarily stop people coming in if they've never done the thing. So you get people that are supposed to have some grounding understanding of art and design or technology, and they don't really, and they don't really have the soft skills of just like discipline around a practice. So when I set the channel up, I was like, I'm not making content for that type of person. I'm not making like inspiration porn. I'm not going to make videos with titles like just start, anyone can do this. It's like, yeah, they can. You don't need someone you don't need someone to tell you that. You just do the thing. That's how hobbies work. I just wasn't interested in that. So sort of finding out that a lot of it is that later, further down the line, is a bit, I don't know. I guess it's not shocking, because if you think of like things like the X Factor and stuff, it's always about selling the dream and the emotional story of the thing. Whenever you see like a reality show about something creative, it's never people like nerding out about the chord sequences in their songs or like anything like that. It's always just like, I'm so glad to be here because my nan died last year. And my nan died last year, and if I don't get rich and famous, it will be like I spat on her grave, because she really wanted me to get rich and famous. That kind of very emotive storytelling. People love that stuff. People who are genuinely doing the thing and nerding out about it are in the minority. But I will always make stuff for those people, because that's what's interesting to me, even if it means my channel growth will be a lot slower. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, Tim. How are you doing? Tim, I think I heard you on the Bite Me call-in the other day. Was that you? Aussie Tim? In the trenches. Yeah, which is funny, because like if you think of the other channels, they are much more actually operating as a studio, right? Like Bite Me and Aramis and Thomas Brush, it's like they are genuinely putting out games. This stream is just me dicking around making something, and that's fun, and I would rather operate that way. And the thing is, I mean, if you take all the Balatros of the world and the Vampire Survivors, it's like, yeah, those people did want to make a game and be successful, but they probably had a certain amount of just like making stuff experimentally rather than being super focused on like game dev meta stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I sort of have a bit of an allergy to being inauthentic as well, and I'm not saying anyone else is, but I'm saying if I tried to do something other than what I'm interested in, it would show very, very quickly, and it would be not appealing to the people who do like this channel. So I just try and do things the way I find interesting, because if I try and do anything else, it will very, very quickly show that I'm not interested in it. I'm unable to feign interest in things that are boring to me. It's Paris Hilton syndrome. Yeah, I really like the call-ins that Marnix has started doing. I think that's a really good it's sort of like part consultancy, like talking about specific problems you're having and getting some advice, and part just sort of like agony uncle type thing. I think it's a really good format. I like it. It's good. Unk now said, was your class part of a game design degree curriculum? We had an intro level class made to get people to try making their own games. Yeah, it was a game design degree, so it was a Bachelor of Arts degree. And it's funny because when you teach that stuff, you know, you've got an intake of mostly 18-year-olds who might have signed up not knowing what the distinction between design and development is. That happens a lot, and part of it is because there's loads of misinformation about those things, but it's also that, you know, you don't really know what you want to do when you're that age. So even if a degree is supposed to be design, you sort of end up having to teach all of the sub-disciplines anyway. So the way that we taught it would be like about a third of each year would be the actual things you would consider game design if you were a game designer in a studio, right? So documentation and pitching and stuff like that, and like creative direction type stuff, analyzing games and learning how to talk about gameplay and stuff like that. And then a third of it would be other skills like arts, like intro to art and intro to narrative and intro to computer science. And then a third of it would be kind of more humanities or business focused angles on games for people that maybe don't actually want to be game designers but want to work in the industry or become researchers and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a game design degree, and I was actually involved in it from before it started, because back in 2018 I was still working in a local mobile studio in my first job, and there was someone who was like a digital arts person wanted to open a degree at the university near to me, and they gave me some work as a consultant, just sort of like reviewing the curriculum and working out what people needed to learn. And that's an interesting task in its own right, because if you like go on LinkedIn or whatever and hear people that work in the games industry talk about game degrees, they'll say, oh, they're not preparing people properly, they're not teaching the right skills. And the thing that they often don't understand is that you have to meet your class like where they come in, right? So if you've got a bunch of people coming in that don't actually really want to work in the games industry, and they've just come to university because they've been told, oh, you need to do a degree at 18 or you won't have a future, which is actually the majority of in certain types of institutions, that's what the majority of students coming in are like. So you can't really base everything around like what will they actually need in a game studio, because you're trying to teach all of these transferable skills, because if you didn't, you wouldn't really be serving your class. So you have this weird challenge of trying to make something that makes people industry ready while also having enough transferable stuff so that people who, you know, make a bad decision about their future when they're 18 still get something out of that, you know, 3 years and 30 grand or however much it is now. So it's a very interesting challenge, and you kind of have to teach all of the bits. You can't go super deep on anything like technicals, or even on pure design, and you have to always kind of teach it in a way that makes it transferable to other places. So I would always teach a lot of game design stuff as general design, you know, so you're and I think that's helpful. I mean, when I left university and went back to working in industry again, the first job I got was with a studio that did games for brands. So you're immediately in a world where you're not really talking to game developers outside of the team, and your clients are like people that own a record label, or, you know, people that own a fashion brand or something. So you need to actually be able to operate as a generalist designer that isn't a games person. So yeah, I don't know. It's a whole crazy challenge in its own right to kind of create that sort of thing and make it work for all of the kinds of people. Seamus, I missed your call in because I was like I was in the chat up until that point. I think I heard the caller before you, which I think was Tim, and then I was like, I had to go and do something else. Alas. Yeah, industry can turn on a dime. I mean, that's the problem with doing any degree that is too focused on kind of technical skills. You know, you see it with computer science all the time. Oh, they taught Java, they should have taught more Python, that kind of thing. And it's like, well, what they should have taught is general computer science principles and the practice of how to learn and update your own skills, which is something people should have anyway, but you can't always teach a degree on the basis that everyone will already be a hobbyist, because that's quite kind of exclusionary. Although, you know, it would in a perfect world, for the joy of teaching, I would rather be able to have a classroom that doesn't have anyone in it that doesn't do the thing as a hobby and doesn't just enjoy doing it at a fundamental level. But you can't dictate that, unfortunately, when the place you work for wants to make money. Alas. Who do they think they are with their wanting profits? I'm just trying not to get any sort of sideways rectangles because they're the ones that stop it looking like fire. There we go. We can do sparkles, we can do upward streamers, but as soon as we get like a sideways laying rectangle like that, it doesn't look like a fire anymore. So that'll do for now. That will do for our fire block. So I've got these objects called lumies and burners that are like my little impulses that create light or create fire, and they measure as a circle. So in this case, I'm going to make the range. The blocks are 24 by 24, so the range should be 12, but I'm going to make it extend a little bit further so that the fire can kind of catch things on different directions. And then the fire block sprite should have its anchor point in the middle. I think that's... all of my blocks are anchored to the middle point. Dad stuff. The call-in got dadded. Cursed children. Okay, so we have a fire block. When it's created, it creates a Lumi and a burner, which are like our light source and our fire impulse to burn other things. And that is set to -1, which basically means it will just exist as long as this block exists. And... it will also, if the block beneath it is destroyed by something else, it will turn itself into a coal and fall down, which I think is something I copied over from the bonfires, but it also makes sense to do it in this situation because it means that we can have a fire that kind of falls and does different things. So I will leave that there. And then all we need to do to test this is... when a spike hits a burner, it has like a random roll to turn into one of these fire blocks. And then I'll make the fires just always burn the player if the player is on them. Because I think that's the expected... a lot of this comes down to like the expected behavior that the player would have. So can we sprint through a fire really quickly and not get burnt? Maybe. But I will start off more restrictive and make it so it just hurts you. If... So we're going to get the nearest burner object, var near burn equals that. I'm going to say the player was flammable before. I can't remember what. I think I used to have it so that if you stood next to the fires, you set on fire. Yeah, the player should be flammable, because that would be quite fun, because then the player can accidentally lead fire from one place and set fire to other things. But I think I had it prototyped in, and then I rebuilt how fire works in general, and that means I had to backtrack to put it back in, and I haven't done that yet. $70, that's a good question. Yeah, so I have denominations of coins. I have a single, a 5, and a 50. And then also, if the singles detect that there's like 8 of them around, they can create a pile. And then the piles also, when they touch another coin, they take that in, and the pile sprite changes. I don't know how much of an optimization it really counts as, because now the coins are looking for nearest neighbors to turn themselves into piles. So I think it's one of those things that there is probably a GDC talk on it somewhere, but it's so niche, and it shouldn't be niche. It's a pretty core thing, right? It's one of those like wonderful overlaps between design and implementation. And these are the things that if you're a solo developer, you have to think a lot about, is like, how do I do something that is both the better design decision for the player and the better kind of production decision for me, in terms of like how much work I have to do to implement the thing. And I'm almost certain there are GDC talks about that, but they won't necessarily be labeled in a way that we can easily find them. I didn't know Vampire Survivors did that, but it makes sense. So that's both a kind of optimization choice and a player-facing choice. And if you think about it in terms of what that achieves for the player now has a focal point of like, that gem is worth more than others. So I talked before about, if you the experience of playing Vampire Survivors is like reading a heat. It's like reading 2 heat maps, and one heat map is like, where is the danger, and one heat map is, where is the reward. A lot of games have this. It's about like reading the space visually and trying to work out where the risk is and where the reward is. And that means that any decisions you make as a developer that increase the legibility of that heat map, or make it kind of more extreme in one place than another, and more visibly extreme because there's a boss there, or there is now a gem that is clearly better than the other gems, those are always good decisions to make, because it kind of just makes the game more legible in a way that is very, very clear to read and easy for the player to respond to. So but yeah, that's a very good example of that sort of thinking, I think. How do I write code and do Q&A at the same time? But really slowly. But that's fine. I mean, I will spend 2 or 3 times more time on this throughout the week than I do in the stream. And the stream is more just to come and hang out than anything. So I don't really care how much I get done in this stream, as long as it's a kind of good stream and other people get something out of it as well. We're here for the solidarity. Sometimes the solidarity is worth the progress cost. Right, so the traps will destroy themselves if there's nothing beneath them. That's old block. That's fine. Turn into a fire block if touched by a burner. Now this might be too sensitive, so we do have a strength variable on burners, and we could make it so that, you know, like a torch isn't strong enough to burn one, but at the moment we'll just test it this way and see if the more extreme variant works. So we save the nearest burner as a temporary variable, and then if the distance to it is less than its range, which is a variable that all burners have, then we destroy the traps and we make a fire block. See if it works. We need a spike and we need a fire source. Okay. Uh-oh. It's floating in the air. Okay. Yeah, as long as people are able to develop while hearing someone speak. I always tended to find I can't write very well when listening to people speak, but everyone's got a different brain when it comes to these things. Ah, okay, I see what's happening. I have some stuff. So I've been umming and ahhing about doing kind of a toxic waste that takes over blocks and melts through things as well. I might do that today because... Right, we'll get rid of that for now. Ideally, we want these blocks to be locked onto the grid so they never appear in a way that would just like have them free floating in the wrong place. So that kind of piece of code that I was fighting with then was written for the bonfires, which are an item, which means they can be like anywhere. Whereas the fire blocks are supposed to be sort of adhered to the grid like Minecraft. So, okay, so that needs to... That needs to be 12 higher because it's half a step. And I mean, let's have a look at how the strength system works for burners because I don't even know what numbers it uses. Okay, so it's basically a percentage. So we could use that percentage strength to determine how frequently the thing can ignite. So a torch has a 3% strength, which would mean like every frame or something we can give it a 3% chance to light. That feels kind of... This is the thing that I always find funny about, like, particularly when you're working on a project like I am, which is not that often, of you having to do kind of archaeology into your own project to find how the how the thing works. Okay, so we check if the burner is in range, and then we say if random range 0 and 1 is less than near burn type strength. And then that means that it's all about proportionality, isn't it? So if there's a 3% chance every frame for a torch to burn spikes, then anything that is a stronger flame source than a torch will feel like it ignites spikes faster. So if we have like a firebomb or something like that, it will feel kind of like it catches quicker. Because the burner that we've made for a fire block is slightly wider than the actual block, that means that a set of spikes should sort of ignite each other if we set fire to one. I don't really have a very good test case for this because the spikes don't appear very often, but maybe I should just make a really horrible red room that's like a long hallway with lots of spikes at the bottom that always spawn, and you have to kind of go along. I did make it so that the chests occasionally have like unlit torches in as well, so we have a little bit more leeway with that stuff. Okay, so that went immediately. That went immediately as well. It's not hurting me, but I'll work that out later. Right. Maybe my torches don't really work the way I think that they do. Oh, it's point. Oh, okay. It's that classic thing of like you make a, what would you call it, like an object class, and you don't, you sort of put these variables in, you don't really know what they're for yet. It's like, yeah, it's probably got strength. I don't really know what that is. I'll work it out later. And then you have to come back later and work out what strength means. That's kind of the process I'm going through here. There we go. Okay. And I think I have like an ignition sound, which should just play whenever that type of block is made. I'm very focused on kind of destroying the level at the moment, but I do like that because it kind of creates opportunities for the player to mess themselves up, which I think is one of the best kinds of failure you can have in a game with a kind of skill or judgment element, is just letting the player be their own worst enemy. It's kind of how you get the funniest deaths in Noita, actually, is the kind of like, oh, I'm going to break this ceiling and this stuff's all going to fall down and I'm sure I'll be able to get out of the way of it in time. Oh no, dear reader, he could not get out of the way of it in time. Thank you, Furkissimo. Okay, we've got Bernie stuff. I guess I would think of like, are there other instances when we should do that? Burning trees feels a bit mean, but let's have a look. So the code that... Do these have an age variable? No, they don't. Okay. So I've started giving pretty much every type of entity its own age variable, so I can do time slicing. Oh, Tim, when you were talking about your kind of pachinko game on the Bite Me stream, I was thinking about, did you ever play that? It was like a mobile Nintendo social game that had like amiibo type people in it. Not amiibos. What were they called on the Wii? Like the little characters you made on the Nintendo Wii. And that had a game where you could like throw them down in a pachinko machine. Oh, time slicing is just like making a thing not happen every frame that previously happened every frame. So if I've got like, so these wooden blocks that make up the trees, right? If I want to make it so that they're constantly checking for a source of fire so that they can ignite, I don't really want them to do that every single frame, because if we look at how many tree blocks there are, there's like probably 40 on screen at the moment. So we would time slice them so that each one only does it every 5 frames or something, and then they wouldn't all be doing it at the same time either. Yeah, let's make trees flammable. Why not? This can be a bit tree trunk, there we go. Make sure these have an age. Yeah, I'm having to learn sort of optimization stuff in this game because I've never really got a game to a point before where it was worth thinking about. They've always been hobby projects, and it's never been like, oh, I must like make this game performant, because I've never really got a game to the point where I was thinking about taking it to market. Or I mean, with this case, it's like the game is inefficient because I'm using objects when I should use tiles. It's too far along for me to go back, but I need people to playtest it. But it's also like not... I don't expect to put a game that's perfect in front of playtesters, but if there's a really obvious issue, like, oh, the game slows down loads after 10 minutes, then there's not really much point in putting it in front of them, because they will just tell you about that. They'll just go, did you know? Oh, yep. Yeah, I knew about that. Oh, okay. Well, maybe fix that. That's what they'll say. I think maybe my block art needs to take up the whole block for this to make visual sense. Make another layer and make a sort of see-through orange one, I think. Just... don't know if I could go to using a 2D engine that didn't let me draw in the engine. I like making art assets, but if I have to go outside of the engine frequently to do it and like break my flow, then I probably wouldn't be iterating as fast as I am on various parts of the game. That's the thing about game engines. I always get inexplicably angry when people ask you to tell them which game engine to use. Because it's like, no, this is a tools question, and a lot of the answers will be, how do you get on with it? How does this tool work with your brain and disposition and particular set of needs for what you're trying to make and how you like to work? Oh, it wasn't Peglin. No, Peglin is a great game, but I think it's Tamagotchi Life. Tomodachi Life. It was... There was like a mobile version of this, which is like Nintendo's equivalent of The Sims. And there was like a pachinko minigame. But it was only on the mobile version. And you would get your friends' Miis and throw them down into the machine, and it was really funny. And then you won like... I can't find it. Yeah, I can't find it anymore. I mean, this is going back like 10 years now. Peglin's great, though. Okay, that looks a little bit more like it takes up the whole square now. It's not perfect, but it'll do for now. Focusimo, there's a submission portal on the bottom left of the screen for game testing. It's the main thing that this channel is about, but I can't just randomly switch to testing people's games because I'll never get anything done that way. And also, there's people who have been waiting for months and months. Probably released their games by now. It's a stream every Thursday, which is basically for everyone. And then I do one that's just for our Patreon supporters, which is every other Wednesday. And the bigger that community gets, the more often I'll do those. So maybe at some point in the future, I might end up doing those every week. But at the moment, it's every other week. Maybe one day, everyone on YouTube will support my Patreon at the same time. And that'll mean there's no difference between those two things. But probably not going to happen. Yes, right, the fire catches and spreads. The fire looks like fire, or like at least enough for people not to get confused about what it is, which is what our first point should be when we're doing art iteratively. It's just like, does it communicate what the thing is? Oh, I don't know what happened there. That's okay, Feck. There is no interrupting. The whole point of the stream is to chat about stuff, so... Right, so there's a fire. We need a torch. That torch just fell off the wall. I don't think that's what they're supposed to do. Right. What happens there? Oh, I see what's happening. Right, it's because the fire turns into a coal. Yeah, I think I should get rid of that feature of the fire, basically. So the fire is currently turning into a coal. That was a hangover from the bonfire. It was so that if a bonfire is on a block and you destroy the block, the bonfire turns into a burning coal, falls down, and then when the burning coal hits another block, it turns back into a bonfire. But I'm not going to have that for fire blocks, because I think we actually want them to be able to just sort of free float and burn the other blocks around them. So we'll get rid of that. And I think we also need the tree tops, which are the leaves, to be able to go like this as well. Maybe they're a bit more flammable. Biddly, 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 biddly. So they can do every 3. I wondered why. It was basically the tree was setting on fire and then turning into a coal and falling down and then hitting the character on their head, and that's why I was dying. I think I've got some torches that aren't actually assigned to be stuck to the wall. Right, the fire doesn't work if it's floating, which kind of makes sense, but it's not exactly what we want. So we get rid of that, and we just say 12 seconds. After 12 seconds, these will destroy themselves. And then maybe because the fire blocks are occasionally going to be up in the air, I might just try and make them look a little bit rounded down here. Just take those harsh corners off so that they look a little bit less blocky. I want them to take up the full space of a block. But they're going to occasionally be hovering because of those trees. So we'll make them look like they can also just be like a... almost like a ball of fire on their own. I think this is the best way to think about art if you're a game developer and designer first and not really an artist. Is just to think about like almost like you're designing physical objects like furniture or something, and like how is this thing going to be used? What do people need to think it does when they look at it? What are the kind of situations it needs to fit into? And deal with those things first rather than making the thing look really beautiful. So at the moment, it's like I need people to know how big that bit of fire is, what range it is. They need to know that it is a fire, and it needs to fit into a couple of different circumstances. It's usually going to be a block on the floor, but sometimes it will be a block in the sky because of the trees. And that's the kind of design parameters for making that bit of art. This is my sort of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air jumper. How are you doing, Rob? How is Clomp? How is the Clomp life? I didn't choose the Clomp life. The Clomp life chose me. I am what we used to call a man of science. I know these crude blocks to be nothing more than advanced mycelium, but sometimes they shift and make groaning sounds and look as if they were the flesh of some huge beast. I wonder if we have been consumed rather than simply overrun. This is what happens when you quickly type narrative content into hard-coded things rather than having it sensibly in a JSON or something somewhere. You end up with all these lovely typos in your narrative. Okay, we've got fiery blocks. Okay, so we had this crash earlier. It's when an egg hatches. It's when an egg hatches. Eggies, why are you broken? V speed is a read-only variable. It's never stopped you before. Love it when your game just starts getting picky about something that it's never cared about before. No one can escape the Clomp life. I like the fact that there's someone in the 53 people watching right now will have gone on to Urban Dictionary to find out what clomping is. And there's probably like a really horrible meaning for clomping, but we're talking about Rob's game Clomper. Thank you, Gleb. Sorry, I just fixed it by not doing it. I like how we get too many light sources when there's lots of fire like that. It should be wrong, but it kind of looks intense in a good way. Too many light sources. But hey, it's cinematic. Look at me, guys. I'm a Kurosawa now. I feel like clomp would have a dirty meaning in Australia. It feels like an Australian slang word. Yeah, we started clomping. Yeah. This means I can also have a very small chance when you're using fire in the red rooms to turn the fungal blocks into fire blocks, like fully turn them into fire blocks, which I think could be quite good. Has Dirt World vanished from the project updates page on the Discord? It shouldn't have, but we do have lots of projects and I haven't updated it in a while, and that forum does filter by, you know, who has updated most recently, so... Right, we've got torches which no longer stay on the wall, which is fun. So let's see what's happening there. I thought it was going to be a tuning day. Okay. Oh, I think I need to do something very tedious and manual. Isn't that just always the case? Sometimes you just need to do something tedious and manual. Fixed. Is it called fixed _ to wall? The balloons have this quality. I don't know why. Let's go to the carnival and see what's going on with the balloons, because the balloons have this quality and it works on the balloons. Hello, balloon. Oh, no, they don't. Or maybe it's baked into the item. Of course it is. Oh. Yeah, okay. They have fixed to wall set. The problem with torches is if they come out of a box, then they're not fixed to a wall, and if they spawn in the room, they are fixed to a wall. So we're going to put a variable definition down here for fixed to a wall. And they are not going to be that by default. And then I already have it so that the physics in our item parent doesn't make things fall down if they're fixed to a wall, but then the first time you interact with it, like picking up or punching it, it immediately becomes unanchored, which is how you can like knock torches off the wall and stuff like that, which is what we want. But now I need to go through the rooms and unfortunately do the tedious manual thing of making all of these be fixed to the wall. Just check what their spawn rate is as well. So chance to spawn, we don't want it at 100. I'll give each of these 50. So in a room like this, we'll have 4 of them. So you'll nearly always get a torch in a room like this, but it will be fixed to the wall and it will burn itself out after a little while. And then we just need to go through and do this on all of them. Luckily, it's only the grey rooms that have torches, and I will just only put 4 back in all of them. Just try and bias them a little bit towards the area that takes you some effort to get up to, so you don't just run in the room, immediately get the thing you want. The castle rooms go up, the dungeon rooms go down, but otherwise they're pretty much the same. I'm putting them on this layer and then hiding it because that's the layer that doesn't get shown in the preview of each room. Turn the grid off. I still like how some of these rooms sort of look like a dizzy egg level, just like the project. So I started off with someone else's project template because back in May or June or whenever it was, I just was like, I'm going to download 5 different platformer templates and just look at the feature set in them. And then I'm going to start making a game and work out what it is later on. You know, it's a tried and tested way to make an awful game. And the one that was actually good was the Dizzy Egg one. I downloaded so many platformer templates that just didn't have a key feature in. Or if it was like, oh, you can... or the classic one is when people make templates that just do not have any flexibility, so you cannot change the grid size or something like that. Okay, we're not going to put a torch in the kitchen because the whole point of the kitchen is if you want to use the kitchen, you need to bring the fire in from somewhere else. Library. I eventually want to make the books and maps be flammable because I think that will lead to some funny fails. And we like a funny fail, especially in a very kind of procedural game. People that like procedural games, they like a funny fail. Don't quote me on that. It's just, I feel it in my bones. That's just the type of sickos we are. Okay. Torches should work. Let's make fungus interact with the fire blocks now, but we don't want it to be too easy to get rid of a room of fungus. And the problem with destroying the fungus too easily as well is you can completely destroy the floor which is funny, but it's not always what you want to do. So let's have a chance to burn the fungus into a block. Maybe put a block on top of it. Maybe we can... Maybe setting the fungus on fire makes a fire block on top of it, but doesn't actually replace the fungus block. Let's try that. So we make it above ourselves, and we only do that if there's a free space. Place empty. Okay. If the space above us does not have a block in it, then... And it doesn't already have a fire as well. And we'll make that rarer. So every fungus block is checking for a burner. If the burner is near enough, it does a random roll based on the burner's strength. And then if the space is empty, right, what I need to do is swap these cases round, because this is more likely to be not true. So we'll do that first. Starting to get there with this, you know, first pass optimization stuff. Almost. Okay, so we find the nearest burner. We don't need to do that until in there. So we check if there's an empty space above the current block. If there is, and we're near to a burner, and we do a random roll based on the strength of the burner, then we create a fire block above this fungus. So we can give the impression that the fungus is on fire, and that can set other things on fire, but it won't actually get rid of the fungal blocks. Although it might do, because the fungal blocks do react to burners, and the fire block creates a burner. So this could create a really janky, silly chain of, chain of stuff. But let's just see what happens. This game will never be out, Shameless. Why would I want my game to be out? And people will play it. And, oh, I got bonked on the noggin with an old arrow. How do you not have an age? Oh, it's called block age on blocks. Okay. Just been inconsistent. I should really standardize that. My only feature request for GameMaker is that every object should have a built-in variable called age that just automatically tells you how many frames it's been alive, because I end up needing to put age on every single object anyway. Try that again. I need a wood shatter sound for the SFX wood break, because the crates currently have a slowed down ceramic sound, which doesn't really sound like wood splintering. So Gleb's on team age. I could see, you know, yeah, it just feels like one of those things that I just have ended up always doing. And then I'm like, doesn't everyone need this? Right. Just not getting enough red rooms. Might have to make some more red rooms. I mean, we can add copies to the draw pool, but it's not quite as fun as actually having some new peril. Here we go. That's okay. It's giving us a bit more danger. I do wonder if there's absolutely nothing there if the fire should fall down, but ah, that makes sense, yeah. So, yeah. So by instance bloat, we're trying not to have any variables used on an instance that wouldn't be used on every instance. So if you need it, but you don't need it on everything, it shouldn't be an instance variable, which makes sense to me. I can see the rationale there. The oldest living video game object, you mean, Seamus? Oh. That's a fascinating question. I don't know. Okay, now we go to the combatant script. So everything that has a concept of damage is considered a combatant, because that seemed to be a better word than damage taker, although it's not really the word I would use for this either. So the characters that can be hurt and hurt each other, they all have this same create script, stuff that happens when they draw so that they can show taking damage, and then a step event where they check for things around them that should kill them. And that means I need to basically do the same thing for fire. Now what I could do is I can create a hurter on the fire block, which will like damage stuff that's around it. The problem with that is, like, I don't think a fire should just immediately hurt anything that it's touching. Like, it shouldn't just shatter a jar immediately. I think what it could do is it could have like a pulse where every half a second it creates one that just sort of flashes and hurts everything that's touching it. I think that might be a better way to handle that with a fire. So I'm going to go back into my I haven't used a hurter in a long time. I can't remember how you do it. So I invented a thing, and now I don't know what it is. So I've got to go and find it, dig it out. And okay, the bomb has one. Let's go and find out how that works. And I make this smaller. So the burner for the fire goes out a little bit further than the edge of the block. I think the hurter would be more concentrated in the middle. So you have to really stand in the middle of the fire for it to hurt you, I think. I think that's probably best. Let's try it. So the fire block is going to be creating one of these that only lasts for a frame. And it's going to be doing it... Oh, we don't need to use an alarm because I can use the age. So if age modulo, I don't know, 20, like 3 times a second equals 0. Make one of these. And then the hurter also has an impact particle. So if something is hurt by the hurter, it will get a little kind of spark on it. I don't know if that's going to really show or if it works the way it should do, but it's there. I put it in. Range should be... Okay, it should be less than 12 because it's a circle coming out from the middle of the square. So we're going to make the range... we'll make it 10, I think. So anything that is currently interacting with a hurter, which is like a sort of like custom little hitbox object that anything can spawn, should now get damaged by fire. So now if I burn that, set that on fire, it hurts now. Yeah, now we don't get that like horrible, oh, you build a red room and it's just immediately got 6 bats in it, because we tweaked that earlier on as well. The red room still provides the peril of the poison gas and blocking your way back to the start though, so... Okay... Where did the torches go that were there? Oh, they don't always spawn, do they? They're a percentage chance. Okay, so torches are not starting lit, and they're also not starting attached to the wall, even though I told them to be. So what is going on here? Let's find out. I bet I have put some code somewhere that is... Right. These should start lit as well. Oh. I'm really going to have to go back and do these manually, aren't I? These are lit and attached to the wall. And then I think the generic item script might be messing with us here, and I think that's why I've got having problems. So this says if this is a torch and it's lit, then fix it to the wall. Okay, cool. There's got to be an easy way to do this. Right, we're going to make a new... probably need that anyway, so I might as well do things that way. And then I don't really have anywhere else for that data to go, so I'm going to put it in the player step, even though it's a terrible place for it. If global that could be it. Okay, so I differentiate between a torch that's come out of a chest and shouldn't be lit and a torch that's on a wall that should be lit by just checking if we've just made a room. They're still falling down. So now we check the specific torches. I think I've got a lot of things fighting with each other here. If lit is true, do all this. Cool. Maybe I'll just hard code it here. They're being very naughty the way I think I've just got things set in too many places. That's the problem. No, I'm not. I mean, sometimes I'm not doing double because it's just old code. The problem is that GameMaker just doesn't enforce it, so it's very difficult to remember to do that when it doesn't really matter for this programming language in 99% of cases. We're basically just getting in a mess because of parentage. Confusing parentage. So we don't need that. We'll get rid of that. And then we're going to do a check elsewhere in the code for fixed to wall. It's been turned off there. But that should be okay because that happens before we get to the code. So that should be true for most, or should be false for most objects. And then when we get to the torch has already been fed that through the inherited event, and then we check if it's a new room, and then we fix it to the wall if it's a new room. I am paralleled. Torches, torches. They're not doing their thing right. And what I kind of want to avoid the situation where I need to go through and do stuff with them in the level editor. Rob has jumper envy, extreme jumper envy, because of my Fresh Prince of Bel-Air jumper. Oh, speaking of new merch idea, I just had my new design for the Ludo Narrative Dissonance shirt come in. I haven't put it up on the website yet. I need to do that. Oh, amazing! I would like I would like an I am Knuff fuzzy jumper. That sounds amazing. The Ken song is so good. Right, so what I'll do, I'm gonna try and just fix this in specific rooms using the level editor and see if that makes it work. So that should be lit and fixed to the wall. And we'll do the study and the armory, which are these little rooms with one torch in. And if I can't get my head around it in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to just move on to another issue. Because this is taking too long for something that was already working fine. And it probably just needs me to go back into the project and make sure I'm not setting things in multiple places that are fighting with each other. That's probably what it is. Nothing fancy, just a lack of earlier discipline. Okay, that's lit. Okay. So if the object is lit and it's lit when it's created, then it should stay stuck to the wall. Yeah, the power of fresh eyes another day, quite. If the lit is true, if age is less than 10, then fixed to wall equals true. Nice. I think you might be onto something severe. I think the way to do that would be to make the fixed one like a child of the parent one that just is set up differently, and then I can place them all in the level and then just edit the parent when I want to do something that affects both. But to be honest, this is like a... Yeah, this is just a fiddly job that I might just have to come back to later. Although I know I can fix it in about 20 minutes. It's not a difficult thing. It's just boring. Which is the worst kind of difficult, really, if you think about it. There we go. All done. All done. So all we need to do is copy that one back across everywhere, like I did before. Because that one has its stuff set up right in the editor. So copy that, hide the preview layer, go back to the castle, get rid of those 4 torches. Hi, Asa Asalamek. We wanna... Okay, this is a room where you come in at the bottom, you go up to the top. We want most of the torches to spawn in somewhere where you have to actually put some effort in to get them. Maybe I'll put one there so that you can die when you try and get that one. That's fun. Just check that these have a percentage spawn rate, and I'm not... Okay, they don't. So these are going to have a random chance to not spawn, or to despawn, I guess. I don't mind that the armory always has one, because that's like a little room where you have to... You can't really get the torch in the armory anyway. You can throw bombs up to it to light them, but you can't actually jump high enough to get that torch. then the thing I've really been putting off doing next is actually having the way that you unlock the blue rooms. And I think what matters in terms of the blue rooms for the alpha build isn't necessarily giving the player loads of choice about them or anything like that. It's just making sure they're there as a progression. Oh, just deleted the whole layer that time. I think sometimes you can have like a bunch of stuff to unlock in your game, and you can sort of agonize over how that's going to happen, like the specific shape of it. But actually it's better to just get some kind of chain of progression in, and then later on make that more sophisticated or tie it to other mechanics in a better way. So I think for this December alpha build that we're aiming for, I'm going to just implement the unlocking of the blue rooms in the simplest way possible. Which I think should be grinding for pink crystals and then just spending them at the castle or something like that. So we've got the blue rooms we've got, and you'll probably just unlock them sequentially, which is not really what I want. But yeah, I mean, we've got the collection, which is like this little art gallery where you get 2 relics. And then we've also got the security room, which doesn't look like much, but it gives you a key card which then opens these doors. So that means that if you've got multiple blue rooms, you can now just shortcut and go straight through there to there. The high rise is a similar thing. It's just like a tall building, and then there's like there's always a relic up here, so you can shortcut up in and get the relic. So the more of these you load into your deck, the kind of easier the game gets towards the end, or the quicker you can do the other stuff, because the blue rooms are just like upgraded, more efficient versions of other things. You've got the portal, which is like literally another way of completing the run. So if you break your level and then you need to portal out, you can build the portal there, and then you can have a way out at each side of the level. And we've got the auto market, which makes the gnome and the hunter redundant, because you can just sell anything here and it never runs out. And then the arboretum, which was going to be some sort of tree room, but I haven't really worked out what it is yet. It might just have loads of fruit and stuff, or maybe some sort of farm that just always has loads of food in it. We love a bit of defenestration. Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for here, because... Oh, Gleb, that's really good to know. I will look into the documentation for the layer blacklisting. That's great. That will make my life a lot easier. So yeah, if you build this like this gallery, you can drop through these, and it does give you kind of the vibe of running along the roof of a museum and doing a burglary. But I didn't. Yeah. I don't have any glass yet, but I think smashy glass would be a good thing to have eventually. Let's check if the torches are working. And then if they are, I'm going to push to Git, because I haven't done that in a couple of, I think since the last, I didn't do it at the end of my last session either. Okay, torches are working again. Cool. We've got torches working. I can, grab it off the wall and set other things on fire by just walking up to them or leaving the torch in front of them. The fire damages us, and we can also start fires in the red rooms, which has kind of multiple uses. We can use it to clear the way, but it can also get out of hand and damage us. Is that going to hurt me if I... Cool. The fire system is still a bit of a mess. It's kind of all over the place. We've got like blocks of fire that spawn, and then they're not really the thing that damages you or whatever, but I think it all kind of fits with the needs of the game at the moment. Got some sound effect being continuously triggered. The muncher won't stop munching right now. We've got the basic stuff to deliver some story through those books now. I've got a note to try and make some atmospheric sound loops for when the when we don't have the music on. And to just make the game feel a bit less dead. Yeah, let's do the git push first because that's the thing I'm more likely to forget. Okay, burn spikes, that happens. Fire block, that's the thing. Wood block sound effect, ambient wind, atmosphere loop. I might do that. I'm going to do less interesting stuff for the next hour and then might end with trying to find some ambient sound loops. Red Room's danger level, that has got some kind of auto leveling in it now. And I want to add a couple of more interesting red rooms to the deck that have a kind of higher danger level, because at the moment we've only got a couple, they're not very varied. And I think that's all we need in terms of room content, is just some more interesting red room challenges. At the moment anyway, for this build. Okay, fire and... I'm going to call it various dangers. Fire blocks. Fire blocks spawn and do damage. Egg bats spawn more, less, depending on run depth. That's it. Okay, so one of the red room concepts I'm thinking of is like a long, thin hallway that actually gives you like a proper platformer jump puzzle, because we don't really have a lot of those where the danger is in the room. In the grey rooms where you've got the spikes and everything, it is much more just like the danger is like just not being careful. It's not a super difficult challenge or anything like that. So I've been thinking of like a left to right room like this that is basically a if you fall down you're going to have a bad time kind of situation. So maybe we take the hatchery. What's the widest room left to right that I have? I think it should be wider than that. This is like a room that when it's full of monsters, it's a bit of an annoying to jump around in. And if you fall down, you end up not being able to get back up and stuff. But I want more of a kind of long, thin room. I don't think I have one set up that way yet. So I don't have anything to base it on. Although this is probably all right in terms of width. Because if I make a left to right, I mean they flip anyway, so left to right isn't. But if I make like a horizontal room, and then maybe you come in here, and this is like a scary red room, and you're doing a jump puzzle, and if you do the hard route, you get to the door up the top, and if you kind of fall down, you end up stuck with the door at the bottom, and then you can't get back up again unless you build round in some way, because the door at the bottom doesn't allow you to get back there with the jump puzzle. So I think that might be a good kind of starting point for the room concept. So the kind of fun thing about this project is I get to do sort of localized level design for a room, and then as you're playing the game, it's like, okay, you do play the same room over and over again, but it really doesn't register that as much as you would think it does. I'm going to call this the Gauntlet, and we can rename it later if we come up with a better name. But okay, so I am going to leave these doors in place as a reference point, and then I'm going to get rid of most of this. Although Maybe it would be kind of spookier and more, I don't know, atmospheric if this felt like if it wasn't all a red room and it felt like some of it was previously a castle or something. So let's go with that as a concept as well. So I'll put some grey blocks in the corner. I'll go back to the facade and get rid of this. So it will be a red room in terms of its categorization, but I think maybe we have some stone in here as well. Because what I've done with the other red rooms is they're actually like I want them to kind of feel almost like a piece of organic material, like a tumor or something. So I put these bits around the edge so that they can kind of branch out and they don't look like part of a building per se. Just do that there as well. I meant to do that there. And then the gauntlet will be like a sort of medieval room that's been overrun. Oh, I've done what I always do. Started on the wrong one. Always do that. Open up an asset that I've copied and start working on the wrong one. So turn that back to the crossing. That's grey. This is the gauntlet. And yeah, we'll just get rid of most of the bits we don't need. So the player is going to come in at this level because we are basing this on the crossing. And that is the player entrance point is here. So I will just make a little platform so we can see where that is. I will take this door away. I'll just leave a gap. And that means, I think the way that it works is if I've already built a room here that has a doorway, then it will open it up that way. But what we really want is for there to be a jump puzzle. And if you do the difficult jump puzzle, you get to the door at the top. And if you don't and you fall down, maybe you fall down and you just fall out of the level when you die. Not sure yet. Or maybe we put a bunch of spikes down here. But we won't have this door in the middle because it's a sort of all or nothing risk reward type situation. And I'll put mostly stone around the outside. So instead of it being like this room being a big red growth, it will be like a kind of medieval dungeon space that has the growth in it. It'll still be classified as a red room, and it will have a red room facade, which will give it like a scary red kind of fleshy black backdrop, which I'll put in a second. I should really be working with the grid on because I'm putting things not on the grid. But then because we're using the medieval stuff, we can maybe use the chains as well, which is kind of cool. And maybe we do a sort of battlement ceiling just because it gives it a little bit of a sense of place. see what we've got in terms of backdrops. We've got these. That's it. Those are my backdrops, and these don't need to be pixel perfect because the way they're handled in the game kind of scrunches them a lot anyway. I know some people will say, yes, they do need to be pixel perfect. What are you saying? And I will say, no, they don't. They don't. They really don't. It's fine. No one can see. I don't mean in terms of the placement. I mean in terms of the dimensions when I scrunch them and stretch them and stuff. There's a lot of people that get very upset by that kind of thing. And I don't like it when you can see it, but you really can't in this game. It is an art style that is very permissive to that sort of thing, because most of this gets darkened so much once it's in the game that you can't really see it anyway. It's just the odd little bit poking out. And mostly these kind of facades exist to register where the back wall is. Okay, there we go. And what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to copy that and save it because I feel like I could put a couple of different things in here. Just call it Red Castle at the moment. Okay. And then let's just make sure it works. So I'll go into the room in it, and we were basing it on the crossing. And the reason it's important to copy that is that the crossing has the Y offset of the room saved for it. So that's the only relevant bit of information that's being copied over. And then I put it in my list of rooms in the alphabetical order. RM Gauntlet. And I'm going to put 8 in the deck just while we're testing it, because that means that I can play the game normally but with a much higher chance of getting that thing. You can teleport back with an egg. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really worked out how to resolve that yet, because the eggs are kind of a food dish. Although you can't eat them when they're raw, so... There we go. Gauntlet works, you come in the right place. Cool. Get rid of... We lock the facade, so that I'm not accidentally clicking on that the whole time. I'll put some chains up there mainly as decoration. And then... Copy these across. And then we want a video game classic at the bottom. We want a big old spike pit, I think. And these are, let's make it so that they're not guaranteed, but they're almost guaranteed. So chance, 95% chance to spawn each one, and then it will be like covering the whole floor. So basically there'll be a randomized gap in this. Big old punji pit. I'm trying not to think too hard about why this room exists, why anyone built it. My name's Spike. I'm from England. I'm definitely from England. It's my Spike from Buffy impression. I was not convinced by Spike's Englandness. It was made in the 90s, and that was basically when, that was before they'd, you know, even let people with regional accents from the UK on American TV. So they had to give him the most legible English accent that the Americans know, which is, of course, Bart Simpson doing a Cockney voice. Hello, mister. I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire, innit? Right, so we're trying to do storytelling in the environment and create the puzzle, the jump puzzle at the same time. The problem is, every time I put in these fungus blocks, they are going to grow and do their own thing, which is potentially funny. So we want one here. Maybe we just have 3 platforms. So one sort of there, and one over here. And maybe we just have relatively small platforms, because they are going to have a chance to sort of spread and grow themselves. And the bigger I make them, the more chance there is that each platform will billow out and do weird stuff. So yeah, maybe that kind of thing. Chunkier platform in the middle that has more of a chance to grow and mess the place up. See you later, Rob. Have a good day. I don't have reverse spikes yet, and all of they're very kind of hard coded to be fallen on. But yeah, it might be good to have upside down ones eventually. I also want to do all the kind of like factory hazard things, like buzzsaws and all of that kind of super Meat Boy type stuff eventually, but that was good. That's what we want to happen. Okay, so that was a little bit too easy, even if I messed it up. So what I'm going to do, we want maybe just 2 platforms with quite a big jump. And then I'm going to also, I want it to look like this has grown onto something. So I will make it look like there is a sort of a 3x3 block there. But we still want it to have the chance to grow out and do its own thing. So I will make it like that, so it's got some leeway. It seems a bit weird to call the room the Gauntlet, but I can rename it later on. They just need to have like thematically interesting names so that you can remember what they are more than anything. And 5% chance to spawn a lovely little crate on each of the platforms, which will... What would be the effect of that? It would create an annoying situation where you pick the crate up and you have to throw the crate off the platform to break it, or you have to punch it and some of the stuff will fly off onto the spikes. So the pit is a good name, yeah. Although that makes me think more like a big falling down pit. Uh-oh. Excuse me, what are you doing still hovering there? I need a way of registering when his surroundings have been destroyed, the old mouth monster. But the ceiling on that side means that when you try to come back, you hit your head and fall down, which is interesting. We just see if that is... No, it's not. Yeah, something you have to watch out for, but it's not necessarily... See what I mean about the background? It's sort of starting to show up, but then also we have the kind of trippy effect. So whenever you're in a red room, there's this kind of, you know, psychedelic heat haze warping thing going on in the background anyway. And the more red rooms you build, the more powerful that gets. So it's sort of, you know, so it's just the kind of thing that happens when you're in a scary Last of Us mushroom kind of world. See you later, fire. The pit. Oh, look, what have we found? What have we found over here? The moon. It's the moon. The moon doesn't do anything yet, but it will do at some point. But now you've seen it, you're not supposed to see it. It's a secret. It's a secret moon. Right, there's a... bunch of stuff that I copied over that should be on the hidden layer. But I'll just move it around now. Because you would have seen it was just like falling immediately at the start of the level. Because I hadn't gone rid of it. Let's put a torch there. And egg bats. Chance to spawn. Yes, manually placed, yes. 10% chance to spawn. And then we'll have one there. One there. And one in an annoying place where it will get stuck. There we go. So it will take a while to judge whether that room layout is good or not, but let's just... Maybe I could make an annoying jump puzzle room with the mushrooms as well, that would be good. Yeah, the platforming at this stage is not really sort of challenge platforming. It is much more about, because when you're actually playing the game, it's like it's less about just trying to get somewhere, and it's often about trying to get something and take it somewhere. Because there's a lot of like, pick this object up in this room and take it over to this room type stuff, like you get in Spelunky. So I'm very wary of making the base platforming too complex, because you have to do a lot of backtracking and running around. Oh, I lost my torch. But also the purpose of these red rooms is to add the peril, because the grey and green rooms aren't really there to kill you, whereas the red rooms are. So we're gonna, I think maybe we'll make Gauntlet into like a type of room, and there could be like 4 variations of this that have something annoying to get past. So in this case, it's, you know, doing some platforming. It's not very difficult platforming, but also doesn't have to be the only Gauntlet room. We can make a few. That's kind of what I did with the dungeons and the castles. They're like different layouts of the same thing. So I've got the cursed purse. So the more red rooms you build, the more of these ruby coins you get out of your chests. So that's kind of like the risk reward incentive thing of gradually giving you more and more reason to. Also, I think this room design would just benefit from having some of these around the edge, so that the longer you leave it, the more it will just kind of eat up the space and get overrun from the corners. So when you come back to one of these rooms, it might have been easy the first time you jump through it, and then when you come back, you sort of end up having to work around a different jump puzzle because it's all grown. The only thing about that is these sprites are not in an order that makes it easy to work with. Hang on. Put that as the first one. Yeah, the red rooms are supposed to be all about risk, and that's why I've focused on making them unpredictable. It's not necessarily that everything there is trying to kill you, but if you wanted to use it in a particular way, like, as you say, using it as using it to build or whatever, you're not going to be able to rely on that, so you're taking a gamble when you do that. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it, I think. It's getting a little bit harder to place these and get them in the right place because I made the sprites bigger than the grid, which probably has finally given me a reason for, you know, justifying why this is not a tile map, but it's still not a good enough reason. Why did I not use tile maps when they would be more efficient? Because I didn't know how. So as I said at the start, if you have any questions that start with why are you doing Why are you not doing X? It's probably because I don't know how to do X. Should I learn? One day. Will I learn during the course of this project? Well, probably not. Just look at how I've formatted my others. Dungeon underscore one, okay. So when I have multiple rooms with the same name, I try and approach it so that they have the general same layout. So a dungeon is a room where you start at the top and there's 2 doors at the bottom, and then a castle is a room where you start at the bottom and there's 2 doors at the top. So I'm going to try and do the same thing with these. So a gauntlet is like a horizontal Y-shaped room where you go in and navigate some sort of peril, and you're either going up or down, and up usually gives you a reward and going down doesn't. I think that's the general structure here. So I think what I want to do with this second one is think about using these, which are a little, but I think at the moment I have these randomized so that they don't always spawn, so maybe that's not ideal, but maybe I can put them in anyway just to as a kind of variety thing. And then the other thing is, so smaller columns basically is what I'm thinking about right now. Basically the same sort of room, but we're doing more awkward jumps that have a narrower window of success kind of thing. I think that's the kind of... Not very different from the other one, but that's okay. I don't think that really matters that much. And then what we can do is we'll get rid of some of the spikes, and this time we'll have fungus blocks going all the way down, and that means if you get stuck at the bottom, you won't be completely stuck because you can punch your way through them, but it will be annoying. And these will be like growing those little puffer things that make poison as well. They're called chokers in the game language. So yeah, these will be kind of spawning chokers as well. So falling into one of these pits won't just spike you, it will also just be a pain to get out of because you'll have to punch through the wall while you're getting choked by poison. The poison clouds are also flammable, which means you could throw a torch down there and probably blow all of that up, but that's fine. It's just as long as it's interaction rich, you can kind of let people you know, do whatever with it. So let's turn the grid off while we do the items. And maybe for this one, we put some of these here. I mean, we're experimenting at this stage, so it doesn't really matter if it's not a good idea, because that's how you find out if it is a good idea, is by doing it. And I'll put a torch in the middle. Hi Soda, how you doing? feel free to ask any questions in the chat or whatever. There is no... Doesn't matter if I get distracted. I've got... It's not like I'm kind of online all the time when I'm developing, you know. I do a minority of my development in this stream, so it is really just a time to come and hang out more than anything. Right, I'll just break this wall up a little bit so there's just the slightest chance that this will get out into another room, because we like that. One in each direction, I think. There's going to be some of these that will have snuck off the grid because I'm working quite fast. Right, so we've got 2 gauntlet rooms there. Go back to the room setup. And we've got an incentive to get up the hard way because there's a relic up there. Gauntlet. Right, we're going to do 3 of each. You can see it's gone blue there because RM Gauntlet is no longer an asset. So we'll make RM Gauntlet _1. I could probably make some sort of function that does this all in one go, but I don't know how to, so... Yeah, I don't know how to do everything in GM, but I can make it do what I want it to do, which is all that matters for this. Got the same one twice. That's all right. That won't happen in the actual game because we only have one of each thing. So you can get out if you get stuck, but it takes quite a lot of whacking. Right, the fire is starting to feel dangerous now, which is good. Not sure about it floating like that, but I also don't want it to just extinguish really quickly. I could make it just go out quicker if it's floating, but not immediately. I think that might be a good route. Advice for those who are not coding experts. How did you start learning coding in GameMaker, not counting the official tutorials? And what methodology do you currently use when you add something new? Let's go backwards. The way I learn something new is by reading the manual. I have never really been able to learn things from tutorials. My brain just doesn't work that way. I will occasionally watch a YouTube video if I want a concept explained to me. So I've been trying to use structs in this project to varying degrees, and that's been difficult, and that's partly because I don't really understand how to program functions either. So sort of had to learn lots of things in one go, and I'm still kind of copy and pasting the code. But I will watch a talking explanation of something if it's a concept. So if there's someone saying this is how functions work, this is how structs work, I won't watch tutorials that are like, here is how to make this type of game, because that doesn't really just work with my brain, because I just end up following and copying the code and I don't understand how any of it works. I've always found that programming a feature is like a case of working out how the feature works in the abstract and then working out how the language would do that. In terms of how I first learnt it, with GameMaker, I started using GameMaker back in 2018. And I'd used some... Up till that point, I'd used some sort of code-free stuff like Scratch. I'd worked in a school before and we did Scratch, so I learned Scratch there. And something called Stencil, which was very similar to Scratch. And so when I started using GameMaker, I used the drag and drop language that's baked in. And then when I wanted to try and start using GML, I used a mix. So you can use the drag and drop language and then you can convert it. So you can have parts of the game where you convert it from one thing to the other, and that kind of helps you learn it because you already understand the logic of your code from doing it in drag and drop, and then it just kind of converts the syntax into GML, and then you can read it and you go, okay, so that's how I would write what I did in drag and drop. Yeah, I find the GM documentation is pretty good because it's all just based on a keyword and like, what does that keyword mean? The difference with Unreal, right? I've tried using Unreal. I used it at work because we used UEFN for a Fortnite project, and then I tried using it in a jam over the summer. And the thing about Unreal is it's a pipeline that is so heavily based towards making hyper-realistic 3D games. It's like a spaceship where it's just... Even if you look at the manual, it's like, go and look at this menu in the game, and you can't find out how to get to the menu because it's such a specific interface. Whereas the GM manual is not really. I mean, there are bits of it that are about the IDE, and you'll have to go and find where the asset thing is and stuff. But most of it's about the language, and it's like, okay, if I want to know what a function like ds_list_add looks like, I just go and read that. And I mean, all of the baked in stuff is pretty good. So I did a video about this before, about like why people can't learn to code. And I think a lot of the time people have the expectation that what programmers are people that know an entire programming language and have it in their head. And they're not. They're just people that are very fast at researching. Because even someone who's like 10 times better than me at GameMaker will still be looking in the manual and interpreting what the manual says about things and having to look things up and all of that all the time. So like the biggest hurdle that people have to learning any game engine is assuming that learning means like memorizing the entire language off by heart. And that's just not, that's just not how people learn languages most of the time. It's you learn the general principles, and then occasionally you're going to hit a wall, like a cliff, where the stuff you need to learn next is really complex. That's kind of... I've hit that a few times with this project. And that's where, like, you need to work out whether you're deving to learn or deving to make something. This is a project where I'm deving to make something. I want to finish this game and put it out. But it is a project that has been mostly based around me trying to work within my limits and not go too far. I'm still kind of having to get help from other people to do certain parts of it. And that's, I think, part of being realistic about, whether you're making a game to make a game or whether you're making a game to learn how to make a game. I think that's an important distinction to sort of just be conscious of. Yeah, exactly. Well, they're just, you're always looking stuff up all the time. It just, the nature of what you need to look up all the time changes. And sometimes it just comes down to how manual you are about things. Like, there are certain functions that I've used so many times and I still don't remember the order of the arguments, and it's because I copy and paste them all the time and I don't sit there and think about it. I don't know what I'm doing now, I'm just playing randomly. We've got an hour. I think rather than doing atmospheric sound, which I could just do whenever, I'm tempted to make our sort of dissolvey acid block. Because the whole point of that landfill site that has all of that stuff in a big block is that it was supposed to have like toxic waste and stuff in it as well. What a lovely carnival. So many lovely prizes. I do wonder if the carnival is OP at the moment. I mean, you can get bombs in those prizes. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Maybe we should make it so that the present can have an egg bat in. Monster. There we go. Occasionally the presents will have a monster in as well. The dirt rooms? Do you mean the red rooms or the green rooms? Yeah, I had a lot of fun drawing the fungus. I really like the way that the way that these sprite sheets are laid out, because every block is just hello. They've got faces in. Every block is just a sprite sheet like this, and it picks a random one and then rotates it randomly as well. It's very easy to expand. If I just I want to make this one but change these to green, I can just like go, okay, I'll duplicate that. Get a kind of yucky sort of ochre color. Do a swappy on there. Do some sort of chromatic shading. And then do a swappy there. And then we've got a whole other block that's just that with the color swapped. I can do... It's just really quick. I can do that. And I can say, okay, we want one of those, but we want it to be a sort of orange, almost like a coral. I can do the same thing. Just pick out the levels of color and do a... One of the things I do with... I'm not a super... don't really know what I'm doing with art a lot of the time, but I do know some basic principles, and one of the things I like doing with this art style a lot is like I don't just go up and down on one axis of color as I'm shading. I sort of tend to twist around the palette, if that makes sense. I'm not very strict about, I mean, I'm not really using a palette in the strict sense, but it's very easy to add things to these sets of sprites. The green ones with the natural stuff. So that is the soil. Yeah, I mean, one of the ideas behind the game, and it's, you know, the way I mean, I'm in a kind of slightly privileged position of having a reasonably successful YouTube channel, and that means that my dev can be just driven by making some weird thing I want to make rather than making something that you know, like a lot of people were working in a way where it's like, I must put out a game in 3 months and make this much money. And that means that you kind of are quite creatively conservative about what you make. One of the ideas is that the green rooms should never really be dangerous. I mean, the circus is currently dangerous because the presents can have bombs in, but apart from that, the green rooms are generally chill. And that means you can have a run of the game where you don't really have that much dangerous stuff to deal with. So it's we're kind of going for this sort of creepy, cozy space, I guess, where you can have a high risk, high reward run with loads of scary red stuff in, or you can just build the kitchen and make some soup. So yeah, the green rooms are supposed to be pretty chill. And I think they will be even chiller when there's some like bushes and stuff in them. And maybe some little insects, maybe some fireflies or something. But generally there's not much danger in them. You can have an accident in them. You go in there with a torch and you accidentally light that TNT and you fall through the floor. You know, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, you go in there, you hang out, you get your little carrot. You walk around with your carrot. You throw your carrot. It's a chill time. So yeah, it's a game that's trying to push in a bunch of different directions. I don't think it's necessarily good for that. I think it is going to make the game a very acquired taste because the platforming is not like... The platforming is just there as a kind of method of control. It's not really a platformer in the sense that the skills that you're doing are platforming skills, you know? I think maybe making some of those rooms a little bit more difficult just to move around in, having more things you have to break through, like spiders' webs and stuff like that might be good. But it's making it so the game has some resistance in it without it all being just busy work of like, now you have to break through this, now you have to break through this. Okay, we're going to make an acid block. Last sort of hour of the stream. I do these for like 4 hours on Tuesday. So I think I can sketch this mechanic in, and if I don't like it, I can just get rid of it. Doesn't matter. So we'll make a... Why is there TNT in the forest? We would all love to know why there's TNT in the forest, but... You know... It's because the forest is made of soil, and TNT can turn into soil. It's also because the forest rooms have the mine in, and you use the TNT to, like, blow up the mine and get more gold. So it's kind of, it's a hazard, but it's a hazard that has some sort of reward attached to it, because you can exploit it. Okay, so... Even though these are 24 by 24 blocks, we occasionally make the sprite bigger so that they can do a wibbly wobbly, I believe is the technical term. And we want this acid to have a sort of yellowy green color that is not the same green as anything else. And then we want a basic shape of... So that's the 24. That's the actual shape of a block. We want that. And we want rounded corners. And then what I want to do is copy that out and then just make this into like a kind of... so it's got a edge that is going... Blah, 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 blah. And then what I'm going to do is go through them and make each one kind of slightly change color so that it's not just this kind of bright color the entire time. So if I do this around the edge, we'll get like a wibbly, slimy feel. the idea of these is we'll have an acid block that can just take over other blocks, and then it will kind of move down with gravity. It will occasionally move across, and then they'll kind of burn themselves out and delete after a while, just like the fire does. And there won't be many instances where these appear, but I think they would be a good candidate for red rooms. And yeah, we're going to have like some like little toxic waste dumps that can be exploded, and then these come out, I think. Just as many different like cartoony destruction things as we can do, because I kind of see this game a bit like you're building sandcastles and then knocking them down, you know? I think that's kind of what the appeal of this set of game mechanics is. It's not just you build the level as you go along, it's also that, you know, you have fun messing it up. I think that's what I'm going for. Tech rooms where something went wrong. Yeah, it's kind of what the blue rooms are. The blue rooms are like these futuristic rooms that you gradually unlock. So I think having something related to sort of acid and chemical burning in those could be good as well. Maybe one of them is just like some crazy level of risk and reward to get something good. Right, that'll do for now. That communicates what we need it to do. Can always come back. Right. So this is not going to have a burner, because we're not actually doing fire. We do want it to have a kind of glow, I think. But we could make the glow be a pulse. So that would be 255. Okay. So what I'm going to do with these is 3 times a second it will make a hurting impulse to hurt characters around it, which is what we do with the fire as well. And it will also make a little kind of glow of light as well. And yeah, we've already got key cards for the blue rooms. The blue rooms still use the normal key system, but there is a key card that you can get that allows you to take shortcuts in the blue rooms, basically. But yeah, I need to start building the system for unlocking the blue rooms is the main problem at the moment. Right, so this acid stuff, it should fall right down if there's no block beneath it, and then if there is a block beneath it, it should kind of do a countdown and then try and replace it and eat it. I think that's kind of what we're looking for. But let's just see if they look decent and hurt the character to start off with. What's going on there? They're making a sound. Why are they making a sound? Yeah, the keys are sort of like a global resource for the whole game, so they kind of need to work all the way through the game. What was that? Okay. So we won't do it that way. We'll do that. And these actually need to be parented to the solid blocks. And then if yeah, cooking ingredients from blue rooms is a good idea, because then we can have some late game dishes that you can't cook until you've got them. I think that's a very good idea. That needs to have the proper inheritance. There we go. Nice. What is happening? I think there's something going on where I've never attached a herter to a block before, basically, is the issue. And I also think there's a collision mask issue here. Yeah, okay, that needs to be like that. I don't really the reason all the tabs are open is because the way that the workspace works, because you can scroll around and look for things this way, but I personally find that really tiring, and I think that's why I basically look for everything here and open it, and that's why I end up with so many things open. Yeah, every time this moves, it needs to update this, so... I'm going to need some slime noises for this as well. Oh. Oh, it's because I haven't saved that as a... There we go. That should fix that. If global.gamestate equals explore, then we do that. We do that. Slime sounds however it sounds in your imagination. That's how slime sounds. It's like how, like, whenever they have insect monsters in games and movies, they give them like a skittering sound that insects don't really make, but they don't make a sound, so we have to make up a sound for them to make them, you know, give you an emotional reaction. Okay, so one of the things that's happening is leaving their hurters behind. If I didn't have that debug thing on, I would be completely lost. Oh no, the hurter is round and the thing is a block. It doesn't matter. What a great way to start the level. It basically means you can't what happened? I don't know. Okay. Let's do the readable thing. KB in this instance is knockback. We basically have some stuff so that when one thing hurts another thing, there is normally knockback. And because the thing hurting you is now a block, we don't want the blocks to have a knockback because they will go off the grid if we do that. And we don't want to do that. So I'm just trying to build that in because we've never had an instance where a block is the thing hurting things. So that's what I'm trying to work around at the moment. Just ride the slime. Okay, cool. We've got most of the functionality of that in, and then we will give them the ability to go occasionally sideways, I think. We're going to tick length equals random range between 18 and 22, I think. And then each tick, we're going to change that. And that will make them feel a little bit more fluid, I think. Might be wrong. Oh, it was one word. Yeah. It is the biggest rabbit hole. You know, I think this game would benefit from having water in it, but the block physics of the water is like, that is a get more important things out of the way first type feature, I think. Oh, look, it's stuck. Acid block step my hair to X. We're going to do the classic if instance exists. Be better to do something to make sure that I don't need it, but I can't be bothered to work out what that is right now. And I think the reason they didn't move is I've done a tick based on a random range and I didn't use an integer randomizer, so it probably set the tick length to like 17.41 or something, and so if the player gets stuck in it, then that happens. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. So I think what I'm going to do to test this out properly, we're going to put... So this landfill room that you can build would have some toxic waste barrels in it, and you would blow them up, and then that would start melting the whole space. So to get us halfway there, I'm going to put some of these acid blocks in the top of this room. And then, yeah. We'll see where we get to from there. And then the other thing, I think they already randomized their orientation, so we get some visual variety. Okay, and then I go back to my room. We go to the green room called the landfill, and we'll just put 8 of these in the starting deck. I usually use 8. That's a good way to make it so that there's loads, but you still have enough choice to build something and experiment with other things as well. So here we go, landfill. So it only ever kind of moves and eats. It doesn't have a chance to leave itself behind, and I think it needs a chance to leave itself behind as well. You do want it to eventually burn out like it did there, but I think we want a chance that it can kind of occasionally duplicate itself. So at the moment, you know what? This is my favorite kind of programming, this type of thing. I just love it. Okay, so the rate that it was moving at felt good. So it moves down and it destroys the thing that's in that space. And then we're going to make another random roll to leave one of itself behind in the space it came from at the same time. So we'll put that in here. So I think if you were a sensible person and you were making a game like this, the whole grid block thing would be an actual like array of references. But that is beyond me, quite frankly. So we're just doing objects and then trying to make sure that they stay on the grid. So we go back up there. Okay. And then there should probably be a random, very, very small random chance that it can go out to the side as well. Hi, mayonnaise. Pretty good. We're doing good. We're doing good. We're just trying to get as much of this game made before... You can hear that weird little breaking sound. That's because the blocks are breaking. So it would need its own little kind of sludge noise when it creates a new block to sort of drown that out a little bit. Or when a block breaks, if there's a sludge nearby, it will play a different sound kind of thing. Now, when gold hits those, it should melt. So that's kind of like the risk thing here. If you use the acid to make a way through something, then the trade-off is it's going to eat your gold. Yeah, I'm going to put the alpha on itch in December. There is a build on itch, but it's not very, you know, in a very good state, and I'm not like pushing anyone to go and check it out. Whereas the December build will be, you know, properly aiming people to go and playtest it and get feedback, and then spend the next sort of 2 or 3 months after that actioning the feedback, seeing kind of what people really like and want more or less of. I'm gonna have these play a sound when they're spawned. I don't think I have a very good slushy sound, so we'll just put the nearest thing. Yeah, I don't know if I would expect the acid to set off the TNT. I guess so. The explosions don't chain in a satisfying way at the moment, but that's stuff I can tune later on. I think we're going to make this tick length shorter. I think they can spread faster, so I'm going to go down to 10 to 12. Make this a smaller number as well, so the chance that they leave one behind is higher, so we do end up with pools of it. And then if we have a place empty on that side and a 1 in 5 chance to create an acid block on that side. And then I'll make this an else if, just so that they don't spread out in both directions at the same time. See what that does. And then we'll have little barrels, and when you explode a barrel, they will pick a couple of nearby, or maybe they'll make globs that fly out, and when the globs touch a block, they'll turn the block into an acid block. I think that would probably be the best way to build that interaction. Oh, look. That's the good stuff. We did some sort of wonderful memory leak thing there. I think it's with these. I think it's to do with the lighting thing that I did. I know how to fix that one. It's fine. It's still happening though, and it's because we've just got a runaway like. The lighting thing will happen here instead. And instead of them having a constant glow, I'll just make them have like quite a violent flickery light when they first appear, I think. That should calm that down, but also I think we just have way too high a chance of spawning things to the side. Yeah, it's the Grey Goose scenario. It's the end of the world! I do wonder if I should make it so that it can't go through the stone blocks. Like, it can only eat through certain softer stuff, so it can only eat through soil or fungus. Dang! It's really, it's really going for it. Close some windows. Why is that? Right. If the place is if there's no place there, just take that out. I just need to listen to this voicemail. Call them back after the stream. Right, okay, I'm going to take out the sideways spreading and see where we get from there. Don't know if it's just because I sped everything up or... So that's spreading, occasionally pooling. Oh. I think I might have just broken it by not having my double ands. It's a language thing, not a logic thing. So they fall, they occasionally pool, and they have a chance to sort of grow out to the side and extend to the side. And then something is going on. Something strange is happening. Something wonderful is happening. Let's see what's going on down here. Hello. Ah. Are you self-replicating exponentially? Is that what's happening? Of course. So we'll halve the... We'll cut down their lifespan and see what happens then. I'm not doing a whole lot in loops because I've always forget how to write them. So when I write a loop, I have to actually go back and copy something else every time. Still growing exponentially there. That's really interesting. So, the goop. The goop troop was caught in a loop. I don't know if GameMaker has coroutines. Maybe someone in the chat will know. I am not a programmer or a computer scientist, so if you ask me if an engine has something, and I don't use it, then I wouldn't know, because I don't have that concept from outside of the context of the engine. So it can't, it basically can't go sideways unless there's a gap for it. Which, I'm not sure if that's an interesting rule or not. Juju's got a library for everything. Yeah. Of course, the TNT was right underneath the campfire that time. Maybe I'll make it so TNT can't spawn near a campfire. Maybe. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Still doing it. It's a very, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just put a cap on how many of these can exist at any one time, and then base the whole thing on that. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So idea, so you got there exactly at the same time as me. I quite like it though, it's fun. I'm going to turn the debug rings off on my hurters because it's hard to judge how things really look when that's there. That's a good hangover for before I knew the keyboard shortcut for commenting out a block of code in... If 1 equals 2, then do this thing. Bold of you to assume that there is a object grid system. I think people think I'm like doing some sort of humble thing when I tell people I don't really know how to code. I just know how to do certain things, and this is how most people use these game engines. What happens when you conflate general design and development with programming. Okay, so if we say bar limit equals 30, and then we'll say if acid block C is less than limit. I'll just do that up there because I'm going to forget those by the time I scroll down. And then I'll put this here before the check because I know that will be more performant than putting it after the random roll. So there. So that's all the instance creates corp with that check, I think. So we should never have more than 30. Should that be instance count? No, that's right. And if the same block has fallen into empty space a certain amount of times, it will just self-delete, and then when they fall out the bottom, they'll self-delete. So we'll say times fallen equals 0, and then we'll increment that whenever it just falls into empty space, rather than... Yeah, 70. You're totally right that is probably a better way of doing what I'm trying to do, but it's just... Sometimes you just need to get it to do the behavior, and then... This is the sort of thing that I'm sort of bashing it out in an hour, the feature, and then I will... I know I'm going to end up refactoring it at some point, so I may as well get to a point where I've... tested it a bunch in the game with other stuff, and then I will probably end up having to rebuild it at some point anyway, and then I can do it in a more sensible way. At the moment, we just want it to do something. So that's kind of cool. That gives us a random path through that, which may occasionally be beneficial to us. I'm not going to actually have that room start with a bunch of that at the top. We're going to have toxic waste things that you can optionally explode to produce that effect. So it's not going to do that. I'm tempted to make it so it doesn't go through stone. But still here it is. It's still down there. Hello. Yeah, it's still going, look. So that thing that I'm doing to check how far it's fallen isn't working. Oh no, hang on. Such a mess. Such a mess. I mean, the other thing is just like... Well, it sounded like they did burn themselves out eventually. I need to wrap up in a minute. What would be cool would be if we could get the landfill above something else and see it kind of come down into another room. I need to replace my terrible kung fu punch sounds at some point. Maybe if we have like an acid blob that is an object, like a physics object. Oh, that's okay. I've worked out how to do this better, but I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to do it next time I come back to the project. So we have an acid block, and then we have an acid blob, and an acid blob is like a proper physics object that can fly around. And when an acid blob hits a soil or a fungus block, it will turn it into an acid block, and then the acid blocks just seek downward and left and right and replace. But they never kind of fall on their own, because if we get into a situation where the block should fall on its own, instead it becomes a blob, and then with gravity that will kind of fall down and hit something else and turn it into a block. I think that's the better way of doing it, because then what I can do is larger objects that get hit by the acid, like when the acid went through the presents, you can see the presents still hanging there. When the acid goes through larger objects, like it hits a carrot or I don't know, anything where it's appropriate, it can turn it into a blob, and then that can fly off and do its own thing. So we can use the blob for two reasons. One can be for like when the acid comes through the ceiling, then becomes a physics kind of thing that drops. and then when it hits another block, it turns back into a block again. I think that's probably the best way to do it, because that gives me the most, like, use cases covered. Because when that's going through there, like, when the coins hit the acid, they should probably just fizzle and destroy. But I think when larger objects fall in the acid, it would be good if they kind of became acid blobs that can kind of fly out and do other things as well. I think that might be the best kind of... So, yeah, I think half of what I wrote is useful. I probably will rewrite it next time I sit down with this, but I think having a separate object for blobs would be helpful here. And then when we have the... when we have our kind of toxic waste barrels, which are how you spawn this in the first place, if you, like, punch it, the blobs will fly out in a couple of random directions. They will hit stuff, turn it into acid, and then we'll have some sort of, like, chaos from that. So, yeah. Not bad for, like, a 45-minute prototype feature, but I sort of now know a better way to approach that, which I'll kind of come back to later, I think. Set the tree on fire. Cook the goat in the tree. How active is the Discord server? I would say there's probably like 10 to 20 of us who are posting every day. Just kind of as a social hangout space. And then there's a larger group who are using it to update with their games, or... we use it quite a lot to organize sort of like mutual playtesting, and one of the things I tell people to watch out for on there is just like keep an eye on who is working in the same genre space as you, because those kind of people will be the best playtesters for your games. So like if we have, you know, 3 people that are all making deck builders at the same time, it's mutually beneficial for those people to playtest each other's games, because then you're getting playtesting from like a genre fan that has been thinking through the same design problems as you and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not super busy. I think we've got, where are we at, like 500, 600 members at the moment, and a lot of people are just lurkers, but also it's like you know, some people are there because they got it for supporting the channel on Patreon, and some people don't use it, and some people use it a lot. So but yeah, we have I'm looking at ways to make it more useful all the time. Right, I'm going to wrap up for the day because I need to... Well, I need to finish at 2 anyway. And I also need to phone whoever was calling me back and find out what they want, which is fun. Thank you for joining today. Hope you have a productive rest of the day or evening, wherever it is. And I'm going to be back on Thursday this week. We are going to play some weird and spooky games. I've got 2 games that were sent in on Thursday. Frog Legs, which is already out, but it was in the queue for a long time. Frog Legs and Brine, both weird horror-themed boomer shooters that I thought would be fun. I didn't want to actually play horror games for Halloween because I usually don't like them. And then Friday, Carabella, I think it is. Can't remember how you say it. That one. Checking that one out. So, yeah, if you just come for the Tuesday stream, see you next Tuesday. I said it. I started saying it. I thought, yeah, I'm going to say it. We've got 4 more of these, and then I will put the game on itch in whatever state it is in at the start.